What's up, internet and digital friends? Welcome to another IT Pro show to keep you in the know, brought to you by Spiceworks Ziff Davis and our friends at Trusted Tech Team. Today, we are going to talk about a 6-month review of Windows Server 2022. It's not often that Microsoft launches a new version of its Windows Server. Now that we're at that 6-month mark, it's time to take a serious look of what it brings to the table. In this video meetup, we're going to cover everything you need to know about Windows Server 2022, the key differences that separate it from previous versions to its integration with Azure and all the way its new security features. Some of the points we're going to be talking about is what's new with Windows Server 22 for admins and users, hardware requirements, compatibility, security enhancements, licensing, of course, that's everyone's favorite topic, and then how it interacts with platforms such as Azure and 365 and SQL. And one of you lucky digital friends is going to be winning a $500 Amazon e-gift card. So if you have any question for the panel, keep it going through that widget. What's a widget? Right there, you see it's that Q&A widget. That's how you can interface with us. So without further ado, you don't want to see me just do this by myself. I'm going to introduce our two friends at our Trusted Tech Team because we trust them very much. So batting first, our senior systems architect and M365 admin expert, please welcome Robert Plunkett. Robert, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. And then you did not come alone. You brought some backup. Another senior system architect, M365 Azure admin expert. Please welcome Michael Yu. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Hope everyone is having a great morning so far.
So far, so good, and it's about to get better. Because like we said in the intro, it's not often that this happens. Microsoft released a new version, and time has kind of been broken a little bit for the past couple of years. So we want to hear all the new stuff is going. But before we start, I kind of want to hear what new features have you made available to you. Robert, we'll start with you. Like since 2016, a new feature for me is kickboxing. At night, I get tired of working on the computer, so I became a kickboxing instructor at a gym just because then you think about all those security features, then you beat up a bag. I thought that would be a nice feature. So Robert, what do you do? What's your new feature since the last version of Windows Server?
I'm actually going in the past. I have been fixing up and repairing old arcade machines. It's kind of interesting to see what's, how stuff used to be and how stuff is now, and how everything used to be very repairable, not so much now.
Now it's just like you have like a slick box that you put that emulator in, that would totally, yeah, that would be my dream house. So we gotta maybe chat offline because I need some of those boxes. Michael, how about you?
So I installed a cooking module near the beginning of the pandemic, and so far that's been going really well. Prior to that, I burnt rice, so it's been quite a journey for me so far.
That's right. That's always the bar. Like step one, can you boil water? Okay, we're getting there. Where that is a step in the right direction. So, but now speaking of food, let's dig in. So let's dig in. Windows Server 2022. It is here. So let's go over some of the stuff that some of the new features. So Mike, we'll start with you. So what's really new with Windows Server 2022 for admins and users?
Absolutely. So newer versions of servers, right? Most newer versions of Windows Server don't really come with anything groundbreaking. What they are really good at, though, is combining all the best features of the past versions and improving on them and giving it to you in a more streamlined package. So the name of the game this time is security and cloud. And I think anyone in the IT space knows that security and cloud are the two biggest kind of spaces in this area right now. So Microsoft has realized that that's what everyone's looking for. So they've made a whole bunch of improvements to little things here and there that really up your security game. And they've also added some features that allow you to use Azure a little more effectively along with your server infrastructure. So taking just a quick look at some of the features that are being heralded here, the first area we're going to delve into is security. And with that in mind, one of the biggest improvements is Microsoft really updated the firmware and provided something called Secure Core, which really helps prevent attacks against the firmware and the hardware, which is where most of the biggest attacks come from. That, along with updated hardware root of trust, make it really hard for these hacks to delve deep into your system and do some real damage. So definitely ups your security baseline there. They've also added virtualization-based security. And with the rise of cryptocurrency mining, this is just kind of an inevitability at this point. So Microsoft has definitely taken that into thought and provided more security on that front. In terms of security protocols, TLS 1.3 is now enabled by default. So that is going to be just a much better base point. So covers a lot of bases with that. Encrypted DNS and SMB also have security upgrades there. So just everything that you had in Windows Server before is making a reappearance. It's just a little better, a little more polished here. Storage is also getting some improvements by this what's called the storage migration service makes it a lot easier for you to move large chunks of files from file servers and things to other places. So it really speeds up the transfer rate and the performance of those files once they do get there. And just little improvements overall to the entire SMB structure, just kind of it really makes everything work just a little bit faster, right? And in terms of networking, UDP and TCP have seen a lot of little improvements here and there that just kind of boost performance overall and make things a little more secure. And Hyper-V performance and bandwidth has also been tweaked just a little bit to give you a little better feeling overall. So again, it's not, none of these are groundbreaking changes, right? You've seen iterations of this in the past versions of server, but the really big benefit here is that you get all of them in a package, and all of them are updated to the latest iteration, so you get the best and latest.
Awesome. Sorry, I know we were having some technical issues there, so I think we got those all ironed out. Apologize for that. So, the chat is already kind of fired up with licensing. We all know with Microsoft and licensing, there you need an expert, and you want to make sure that you're all covered. So, with Server 2022, what are the minimum licensing requirements?
The good news, at least not much has changed since 2019 and 2016. It is still rather confusing for a lot of people. You still have that 16 core minimum per server. So if you have a 20 core server, you're going to have to get that 16 plus additional packs to license those additional cores. The good news is they're still keeping things such as standard includes 2 separate, keep in mind this is only for Hyper-V VMs. So the license is included for that. Standard, the data center includes unlimited. Keep in mind only for Hyper-V VMs. They're going to have the exact same CALs, your client access licenses for remote desktop, especially since remote work is becoming more common. You have your per user, your per device. We actually have a handy little tool because I don't know about you guys, but personally, I like to do more of the IT and the support side of it. Licensing legalese, I don't like. It's complicated. I don't understand. Just tell me how much I owe. I don't want to have to, hire somebody just to figure out my licensing. So we actually have a little calculator. I'm going to go ahead and do a little screen share for y'all.
Yeah, that is great. That is really a long time coming. It's like you said, we always had to have a licensing fixer on site. So this calculator is going to get very busy. A lot of smoke is going to be coming from this.
Microsoft doesn't make it easy, do they?
No.
They want their money.
Yes.
On our website, on our little footer, there's actually a link for your Windows Server licensing calculator. And it will bring you through a nice little step-by-step page. For in this case, I'm going to work with Michael. Michael's going to have his example environment, so he's going to help me through this. Are you guys able to see my screen okay?
Yep, looks good.
Perfect. So I imagine most of us probably have more than 25 users. So hypothetically, I'm just going to pick this. You're going to have a few, examples. You know what? At this time, I'm being legacy. I'm not going to virtualize anything to keep it simple. I don't know, Michael. Do you think we'll have some remote users?
Yeah, I think we'll have at least a few. At least a few.
Seems like the new work from home thing. So you're definitely going to need some of those. So let's say we have one physical server. It's going to have one physical CPU. So that's, think about how many sockets you have and how many cores per CPU. Let's just say that we're going to have an 8-core CPU. Now keep in mind, there's the 16-core minimum. So no matter what, we have to have a minimum of 16. We're going to have 0 VMs. Now we're going to have, let's say, what's a good number, Michael, for how many remote users?
Let's say 8. I like the number 8.
Okay, so we're going to license it per user. So this has to be done with Active Directory. So this is every user will need to have a license. You could license it per device. That's good for like if you have a kiosk or situations like schools where most of the kids will share a device. So that's up to you. And then 8 of those are going to be remote. We don't need downgrade rights. Let's just say for the simplicity of this example, we're not going to use any redundancy. We're not going to be doing any other VMs. So you see we have that minimum of 16 cores. You're going to need 8 user cows. Those are going to be people that are on site, any device that's domain joined, etc. Keep in mind that you might even need, if you have a printer that's connecting to, an SMB share, you're going to need a device cal for that, unfortunately. I know a lot of people are like, hey, do previous year CALs transfer? They only transfer if you have software assurance. So for the most part, most people, you'll have to get new CALs as well. So that would be our licensing count that we need. And the benefit is we have a team dedicated just for licensing. So any kind of scenarios you can think of, they'll be able to answer kind of any question. So I know that's a confusing part for a lot of people, but luckily any documentation you can find for 2019, 2016, it's still going to apply. So along with that, there's that virtualization that we did skip over for the licensing, but Michael will be able to tell us a little bit more about how that's going to look with 20.
Let's try another example here. Let's do something a little more complicated because this was like a best case scenario, right? With just one server and none of the fancy options picked. So let's just go through and do another one that might be a little more complex and just show people the extent of the calculator.
Definitely.
So more than 25 users, yeah. Yes, we are. And again, yes, we will. And let's say we're getting fancy here. Let's have 10 machines.
Okay. So we got 10 machines, and how many CPUs per machine?
Let's do 4, and then let's do 16 cores each. We just got a big grant,
so we're a lot of processing power.
Throwing up a shining environment. Very. Let's say 5. And 8 again here.
You want to throw in some copiers and scanners and stuff?
Yeah, why not?
You have to.
Let's do 8 for that as well. Can't get away from it.
No.
Nope.
And you can just pick your favorite number.
Let's just say.
How many remote users?
It's 2022. Everybody's working from home now.
It's the entire company, yeah.
Yes.
Let's say HR has some remote printers.
Nah, we're not looking to downgrade. Yes, why not? And also yes. Perfect. So yeah, as you can see from the questionnaire, it goes through every possible scenario that kind of deviates from what you need. So this is something that's extremely hard to figure out when you're just kind of looking at it and trying to note it down. So feel free to use this calculator. It really does make things a whole lot easier. And in filling out the questionnaire, it also kind of gives you what points to consider if you should ever need to figure out in your head for yourself. So perfect. Thank you, Robert.
Well, yeah, and I think this is great just because, like you said, I've been been in the industry since 1999, and sometimes the stuff just, you get sprawl. You forget what you do have until you actually take it all, put it like almost like figuring out a puzzle, putting it all in places. And I feel like this calculator is kind of helping you. Once you actually have everything there laid out in front of you, now you're actually breaking down that, and even look, if there's even a small percentage of it, like, it's going to get you way closer than you need to be, because it's already a very confusing process. So this is like great for having that baseline, because like I said, we all, whether it's our VAR or somebody on site, you have to have a fixer, an expert, somebody who really does understand it, because those audits, any audits are painful, but those audits are painful as well.
Yeah.
So
There
so jumping through, so I don't know if it's because of all the leading scientists and Elon Musk said that this reality basically exists in a virtual machine. I don't know what the big push is, but Microsoft jumping on, pushing heavily towards virtualization side of infrastructure. Can you guys talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So Azure is something that Microsoft has poured so much money into over the past few years or so, and it really shows. Azure has come a long way, and it really does pretty much everything you need it to do. So one of the biggest pushes for Server 2022 is to make physical infrastructure interact a little better with the cloud instance. So to that effect, Microsoft has two features on Server 2022 that come standard that really kind of help in regards to this. The first is called Azure Arc. And when you have an Azure Arc enabled server, you can manage them centrally like you would a VM inside of Azure. So instead of having to go into Azure to manage your VMs and then VPNing into your subnet to RDP into your servers, you can manage them all from within Azure now, as if they were a VM. So this kind of lets you combine your physical infrastructure and your cloud infrastructure. It allows you to centrally manage it and saves you a lot of time overall. Because there's a lot of companies out there that can't go full cloud, and that's fine. There's a lot of legacy systems. There's a lot of other things that kind of require you to have on-prem infrastructure or an older version of server. With this, any server 2022 that you spin up, you don't have to separately access it. So it definitely saves a bit of headache for IT professionals. The second is Azure Auto Manage, which is a setting inside of Azure. When you spin up a server inside there, you can apply these pretty much what they are as templates, and they will automatically tune your server to Microsoft's best practices. So you don't have to spend all that time going through the configurations and making sure all your settings are correct. You can just turn this feature on and then look, double check any places that are especially important to you. Lots of just kind of time saving and quality of life improvements here.
Got it. That looks good. All right, so I'll jump obviously to chat is hopping. We already have a lot of questions, so we're going to cruise through a few more of these things. Robert, I know you were talking about fixing up video games. I'm old enough to remember an old video game, Defender, so maybe we can get a console for that. But speaking on Defender, what's up with Defender for endpoints on the server, and how is it going to be how do you manage it when it comes to Server 2022?
Yeah, Microsoft has really been pushing Defender, but it's definitely one of those products that a lot of people haven't given a lot of attention. People are like, oh, what does Microsoft know about antivirus? But they're actually pretty far up there now. They're actually competing, to some of the best next generation antivirus programs out there, as well as their licensing is pretty cheap. For most servers, you can license them under $6 a host. Some people charge, thousands of dollars per host. But Microsoft has really started tying it in with the server aspect as well as management in 365. So they have been integrating all of these different aspects. So you have Defender for the cloud, Defender for server. They're all managed in a single central portal. And it's actually now extremely built into Windows Server 2022. You can just add it through the features add-on. But it will help you monitor and protect against things like ransomware. It detects multiple mass file changes of files that haven't been touched in years, and kind of stop that. And it tracks. A lot of people are worried about, especially if you have your file shares on Windows Server, how can I protect this? You hear people getting hacked left and right. I mean, look at even the biggest players. NVIDIA just got hacked, although funny enough, they hacked them back. But anything you can do to add to that reporting aspect, Windows Defender will, if you've never played with a portal, I heavily recommend you do, but it is crazy the investigation it can do. It will have insane analytics, and you can live respond to events as well, and it will even proactively let you know about events, such as, let's say one of your users stored a file on the server that was a brand new file and it did have malicious content in it. Well, Microsoft has a lot of analytics, as we're all aware. So they use that analytics to their advantage. So they will, let's say, discover this they will discover this malware within 2 days, and then they will retroactively let you know, hey, 2 days ago this person copied a file. We didn't know it was malicious at the time, but now we do. We can either automatically action on it or let you action on it. But it's a very highly effective resource, and it ties in with Windows 11 as well.
Yeah, and I feel like, for me, like I said, it seems like this should have been a no-brainer all along, right? I mean, you were basically having so
Yes.
many third-party services defending and protecting your stuff. So it's just like, what better basically than the coders and the developers that are developing it to help patch these holes. And it is something, and I think maybe before it was because it was a sell it and forget it and keep moving on, but not in the world now where everything's connected and everything's live. This makes sense for them to finally delve into this and basically manage their own house, so to speak. So I'm very excited about this portion of it.
Yep, and
All
it's
right,
very lean.
so now we will jump. Yeah, and that's another thing too, right? Because now you basically could hamstring any of your processing power with a third party, but that may or may not know the intricacies of running on that OS. But again, now if it comes from the actual OS built in, it should run lean, it should run smooth, it should be a very light lift. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So now we will come to that portion of the show of should we or shouldn't we? Because there's always that question. You have those alpha upgraders that like, I'm ready to upgrade right now. I just want to get it over with, just jump in. And then you have the people that are like, I'm going to wait a little bit. So for this next portion, we're going to kind of go through and say, should we upgrade to server 22 and what setup should maybe just hold off a little bit?
Yeah. So the way I look at Windows
Go
Server
ahead.
releases, sorry. So
No,
I
go
tend
ahead,
to look
sorry.
at Windows Server releases like iPhone releases or FIFA or Madden releases, right? Something that really from one version to the next, there's not a whole lot, right? Like going from iPhone 10 to iPhone 11, you get maybe 5% more performance here, a little nicer camera, but it's essentially the same device, right? Just a little faster, a little better in small ways. So most of the time, I would say, unless there is a specific feature in the newer version that you need, I don't upgrade if I'm on the second to latest version. So if you're on server 2019 and everything's working great for you, and there's no feature in 2022 that is exclusive to that and you absolutely need, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to upgrade, right? But if you're on an older setup like server 2013 or maybe even 2016, then it kind of makes sense because you're just kind of moving your baseline up by a lot, right? If you're on 2013, it's been close to 10 years. So in tech, 10 years changes a lot of things. And 2019 over 2013 just kind of seems like, 2022 over 2013 seems like an easy upgrade. If security is a big thing for you, then it really does make a lot of sense to upgrade because it's something that Microsoft focused on for the server. So you'll find a lot of nifty features here and passive features that just work to your benefit. If you don't run any legacy systems or like very complicated on-premise infrastructure, then yeah, it definitely makes sense to upgrade. If you don't already use AD Connect, but you're planning to, and you're on an older version, AD Connect will require Server 2016 starting later this year. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Overall, if you use Azure a lot and you find a lot of value in it, then upgrading for the Arc enablement and the server auto manage would also be worth it.
Yeah, so one of the big things Microsoft obviously pushes through all this is, how long are they supporting a platform? They have been unfortunately shortening the duration that they will support a platform. For example, Windows Server 2019, its mainstream support ends in 2024, which is scary to say right around the corner. 2022 is going to be set until 2026, which doesn't seem like that far, but Microsoft is trying to basically make it easier to upgrade because I know upgrading, from an older version, like Michael said, it can be a little difficult, and it's one of those, okay, well, that was difficult, so I don't want to upgrade again. So they're trying to make it essentially a little more seamless for you to upgrade, stay within that support window because they don't want to continue supporting very legacy systems. It's kind of, they found that out. They learned a very hard lesson with Windows XP, and they had to extend that support out, and they did not want to. But there is some things to keep in mind. Also, if you're using Exchange 2019, currently it's not compatible with 2022. They're probably going to release an update soon to support it, but Microsoft has definitely for a while been pushing you to the cloud. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But just to touch again on what Michael said, if you're running an older system, you're definitely going to want to upgrade. You're running out of support. You're running out of, for example, AD Connect won't work anymore. Exchange will stop being supported. You really need to get away while you can before it's too late. Um, even if you're on 2019, if you don't have that custom of an install, it might actually be worth it, before you get too far behind where it's, even harder to catch up. So those are some of the good reasons to upgrade. But if you're, on 2019, everything's working fine. You have a very custom solution that you don't want to spend hours and hours to upgrade. You might be better off just staying in place.
Well, and that was a nice ominous warning. The way you put that, it's just like get out of there before it's too late. It sounded like a horror movie. But no, you're absolutely right. You do have to find that Goldilocks zone, right? Because obviously you can't go too far out, before, like you said, they're no longer going to be extended. But in a way, the way Microsoft is interfacing with the other vendors, it's a little scary to be the first one to take that first step, because then all of a sudden you find that now you have a platform that all of a sudden isn't working, that has nothing to do with the OS. So it almost has to be, a symbionts with like making sure Microsoft's doing their part to deal with all the other platforms out there to make sure it's compatible, because we don't want to be the bug testers. That was always the thing, right? It's just like, I don't want to go first because I don't want to be the bug tester. And that's when it gets scary, especially when it's production data, production servers. It makes you always a little bit nervous to be first. So, all right, we're
Yeah.
almost halfway through the show. We have a ton of great questions, but I just want to remind everybody, that we have that resource widget. It has the big changes, what's new in Windows 2022, and we have also a link to that Windows Server calculator. So feel free, check it out. And it looks like, guys, we also have a promotion code that we're going to be presenting here.
Absolutely. So if you want to get a 5% discount on Windows Server 2022 products and bundles, you can use the code TTTVMU on our website, and that'll get you 5% off.
Awesome. And the benefit of, like I said, it's scary to do these upgrade, but when you have somebody like Trusted Tech Team that does it and sees it, you don't have to take that leap into the void like Indiana Jones, take that step, assuming that step there, go with Trusted Tech Team, and they're like, oh yeah, don't worry, we've seen it, or don't worry, we have somebody else that we dealt it. Again, in IT, we really do need those resources, which are the experts, whether it's in the community or Trusted Tech Team, to help us take those scary steps, or like Robert said, get out before it's too late. Get out, it's in the house with you. Cool. All right, so I want to give a time because we have a ton of great questions. So guys, I'll just start from the top if that works for everybody. So the first one comes from Jason at heydigital.com. What server version can you in place upgrade to 2022?
So for simplicity, I wouldn't do anything other than 2019. That's why I kept saying is, the more you can stay in pace, the easier it's going to be. If you're going older, obviously every environment, it depends on what you have. If you have a pretty stock environment and you don't really have a lot of custom applications just running, Active Directory, you can probably do 2016. But for the most part, we recommend only doing it from 2019.
Got it. Cool. And I just took a glance at the chat, Leo. So yeah, the rules for the Amazon gift card is go ahead and answer a question, and there's going to be a random drawing at the end, and then we will announce our winner then. So just go ahead and get our questions in for Robert and Michael for all things Windows Server 2022 or cooking or, retrofitting arcade games. We could do that too. All right. So next question. I'm just a Spice user. Is there a good resource of independent research to see how Windows Defender compares with other AV providers?
There is quite a bit. There's too many for me to really list here, but you can Google the research. And from personal experience, I have never used any AV or any other thing besides Microsoft Suite one. Back in Windows 7, it was called something different. I forgot exactly what it was, but it had a different name. But the way I see it is,
It did have a different name.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. That was, and I've never had a virus. And the way I see it is, Microsoft probably gets attacked more than any other company in existence. So they've gotten really good at dealing with it. And when you are the majority market holder and the primary target, you see all the attacks, right? So they've gotten extremely good at defending against things. So that's the only one I use. I've never had any issues, but a lot of it also does come down to user training too. The best antivirus in the world isn't going to protect you if you ignore all the warnings. So a lot of it is highly variable on the user. But I can say from personal experience, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and it looks like chat is voting on Security Essentials was its old name before it became Defender.
Yes, Microsoft Security Essentials. Yeah.
That's it. Yep.
Thank you, guys. Right, cool. It was on the tip of my tongue.
Yes, there's something about the red light that is just like your brain will be like, no, I'm going to throw random facts in front of you instead of the word you're trying to get out. Happens all the time. All right. Next question from Glenn. Is Server 22 stable enough to use in production? I'm always concerned until there are a couple of service packs out to fix things. And that's what I was telling you earlier. It really is scary with production data to take that first step. So have you guys seen, do you feel like ready for prime time yet?
Yeah, I think everything, is pretty much prime time. It's not like this is, a huge change. It's not like you're migrating to Vista, So I would recommend it. They're also moving away from the legacy side of service packs. It's more of those monthly cumulative updates that they've been rolling out. So they've also, since like 2016, they've actually really sped up the update process to the point where even in Azure, it can do hot patching.
Nice. And that was one of the other questions from Bob. FHTX able to limit certain updates, especially the ones that break things. Because that's, again, there's always the scary thing. But there's that Goldilocks zone. Yeah. If you hold off on too many, you're going to fall behind and something's going to break. But if you have that one that breaks things. So I don't know, is there a way to limit some of those updates now?
There is, absolutely, yeah. And I think starting with 2012, there's been a way to do that through either group policy or settings on the server itself. So nothing really huge has changed in that regard. It still works pretty much the same way it did in Server 2019. You just have to set the right settings, and it won't automatically download updates unless you approve them. But again, you don't want to let it run for too long without updates, because that's when most of the issues start happening.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Have you seen it? I mean, I'm sure we've all done that home support, and the first thing you do is try to help somebody, and he's like, let's see when the last time they run an update. You're like, oh no. That's when you do
then
the
you're there for
slow
24
backwards
hours.
walk out of the house. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. This is a good one from Darth Oba. Do you need remote CALs if users are domain join laptops and connecting to the office via VPN? And this one's a good one just because, again, obviously in the state of the world we live in now, and it is a good question. It's just like what are we accessing that we actually need that client access license when we're working from home?
Yep, you do need a remote cal for that. Basically, if it touches your server, however it touches it, it needs a cal. There's a few exceptions remain, mainly around IIS and stuff like that. But for the most part, yep, if it's a VPN or whatever, other tunneling service you're using, if it touches that server, especially if it's domain join, you need a cal.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense. All right, next question from David. Is there a smooth migration path from server 2012 R2? We have a number of physical servers that we need to migrate.
Short answer here is no. Long answer is no. Yeah, unfortunately, there's no direct upgrade path. You gotta go up to at least 2016 or 2019 and do the in-place upgrade. Definitely preferable to go to 2019 first. But yeah, there's no direct upgrade path from 2012 to 2022, unfortunately.
Got it. Okay. Next question from Pass Rusher. We will most likely remain a hybrid environment for some time. Will Server 2022 help me manage a hybrid environment better than my current 2012 R2?
So the two features I talked about before, the Arc enablement and the auto configure, does kind of help a little bit, but to be entirely honest, you're not going to see too much unless you're planning to move more heavily into Azure and you want to use Azure as your like main admin console. So again, if 2012 R2 is working fine for your current setup, 2022 is not going to provide a whole lot of changes. But again, 2012 is 10 years old, so it is time to start thinking about at least moving to 2016 or 2019. So when you do want to upgrade, it'll be easier. Instead of going from 2012 to 2016 to 2019 to 2022, might as well speed up the process if you have the chance.
Yeah, I have a question. How is 2012 already 10 years ago? That is like the biggest question. How is that even possible? That doesn't feel
I
right.
met
And
someone
then
a couple of
when you
weeks
said that, I
ago,
was just,
and they told me they were born in 2005, and it sounded fake for a second. Yeah, time
oh, that
passes.
is
Yeah,
unreal to think that it does. So yeah, so you're like, oh, we're on 2012. That's fine. It's like that's 10 years old. You're like, holy crap.
it's 10 years old. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Next question from our buddy Dim Forrest. Do you guys have any plans to do calculators for other services and licensing?
So we do have a
So like
calculator for
any
SQL
kind of
Server as
other.
well.
Oh, sweet.
We're always open to suggestions. It's sometimes though, some of the licensing isn't as cut and dry. It's a very, case by case basis, which is why we kind of always just have somebody available for that. But yeah, you can also see the SQL Server calculator on our website.
That's on
Yeah.
there.
The Windows Server and the SQL Server calculator, those are the really useful ones. For Office 365, it's a lot harder to do a calculator because there's like 200 different licenses and a lot of different variables, right? So for Windows Server and SQL Server, please use the calculator. For any O365 licensing, give us a call, shoot us an email. We're more than happy to help.
All right. Sorry, questions refreshed here, so I'm trying to find my spot here. A question from Steve. Can I back up server 2022 to disk space in Azure and use it as a failover without too much hassle? Does 2022 have that backup feature built in? So I'm not 100% sure. And because I know we went over some of the backup features that are kind of already built in 22. So does it have that built in for any kind of backups to Azure?
It
So
doesn't
you
have any
can.
built-in functionality.
Yeah, so like Michael said, it's not natively built in, but you can definitely work up a solution to do that. So again, Microsoft's focus is getting you to the cloud, not backing up to the cloud. They want your server in the cloud.
Cool. And then speaking of that, I just saw a question about that. As have you heard of any plans on the Microsoft side to deprecate the AD Connect functionality and require full cloud approaches to infrastructures?
Hmm. This is a
I don't
question
know
we
if
get asked
that's
a lot, a lot, a
yeah.
lot. People who have an Active Directory instance and want to go cloud only and remove AD altogether. It's not recommended at this time, and I believe that one day Azure AD will be a standalone solution without the need for Active Directory at all. I don't think that's going to be anytime soon. I think we're still years and years and years away from that. There's just too many things in Active Directory right now that going cloud only isn't going to be a full service suite, right? So the answer to that question is in the next 10 years, possibly. Within the next couple of years, highly doubtful.
Yeah, because I was always curious, especially being in Austin, in the city of startups, how it is to start a company and not have all this technical debt of just carrying a business along. And basically, as we all know,
Yeah.
like the movie Executive Decision, we're literally gassing up the plane as the plane's flying. We don't have the ability to start from, we don't have the ability to start fresh. So I think Microsoft probably is recognizing that there's still a mix out there, and I don't know if that's like it'll organically fall off eventually, and then that's when they'll pull the trigger it tips in that direction. But I don't feel like it's there yet. All right, let's see. So here's a question from Frank that look in Hyper-V Server 2022. I know we talked about this. Are there any significant improvements over the Hyper-V server from 2019? Oh,
Sorry about
yeah.
that. That's weird.
No,
For 2022, not much has changed. There's a few security updates, but luckily there's not too much that they're changing. This is more of an incremental update than a full feature replacement.
Yeah, Hyper-V is
got
pretty
it.
much at its final form.
All right. Curious, does Server 22 support multiple concurrent RDP sessions? We've all been there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
yep, we does.
I haven't seen anything that it doesn't. It should work like just any other server since 2012.
Got it. All right. Summary. I guess when someone adds a question, it literally flip flops me. So I apologize. I'm trying to get to all of these here. All
I have a
right.
few I could maybe read off that were kind of
Yeah,
interesting ones.
sure. Go ahead.
So somebody asked, is Microsoft doing license audits? They are. There's a few things in there. There's official Microsoft ones, and then there's vendor audits, which they kind of work with Microsoft. It's almost borderline skeezy marketing, where you're not forced to do that audit, but they just want to see if there's something they can nickel and dime you for. So if you do get a true Microsoft audit, one of the big indicators is Microsoft's emails that come from Microsoft will not include a V dash. If you see a V dash in a Microsoft email, it means it's a vendor. So you can ask them, hey, is this a mandatory audit? If they say no, you can just ignore them. But our licensing experts have dealt with a lot of people in their audits, and so we can definitely make sure that you're trued up, because it's not fun going through an audit, and they will make you pay more than you could ever imagine, because we can get you below MSRP, but if you get audited, you're paying those full price retail price for everything.
Well, that's good to know. You just definitely need that balance between a true audit versus a business opportunity. From so yeah, we want to careful of that. So this was for both of you guys. Have you seen any like major issues that moving to 2022 that you want to share so far that you've run into? Any speed bumps or hiccups or things that, the IT pros out there should look out for?
As of yet, I haven't seen any major issues. There's always going to be a couple of in-place upgrade pains, right? Just small things here and there. But as far as I know, I haven't seen it break any environments to the point of not being able to do business. But I've only seen like 3 of these so far, so it's a very small sample size.
Yeah.
I've only
But
seen
yeah,
the
again,
Exchange issue
it's
for
all
now.
about, that shouldn't surprise anybody though, right? I mean, it's Exchange. Like you better
Yeah,
you better
always has issues.
handle that with care. Yeah. I mean, it's a great product, but you have to, you're talking about it earlier of just like the pains of they had like with Windows XP, and it's just like it is like that pair of shoes. Like eventually, when you get it so dialed in and all the fixes and then it's gonna work great, and then you're like, and then you don't want to give it up because you're like, oh man, they fit so well and it's doing everything we need, but eventually you will have no choice. All right, let's see. Is there any other questions that you saw that you want to jump to? I got a couple here.
Yeah, I saw one. So somebody was saying, earlier we mentioned the unlimited installs for Hyper-V. So specifically what that means is, yes, you can basically have as many, Hyper-V instances as you want. Um, when we say, either two are included or unlimited is for data center, that means the licensing aspect of it. So if you're gonna, have a Windows Server 2022 server as your Hyper-V host, any of those VMs inside of it that also have a 2022 have to be licensed. So if you have, 1,000, you know, Debian servers, you don't obviously have to license those. But data center will get you, if you want to put 1,000 server 2022 on that single VM host, that's what that gets you. It's the licensing aspect, not the, unlimited actual VMs.
Got it. Here's a question. I didn't see this one earlier from Milan. Does Server 22 require TPM like Windows 11 does?
It does not require it, but they
Wasn't
highly recommend it.
got it.
In other words,
All
pretty much
right.
yes.
Yeah. All right. Another question: does data center really only allow unlimited servers in Hyper V?
Yes,
Yeah, so that's the
correct.
main purpose of the data center
Yes.
license.
Mhm.
Got it. All right. So we got about 10 more minutes. Is there a couple of other questions that you guys want to focus on here? See, because they're coming in fast and furious. There's a lot of great stuff. Again, this is what this is.
Wow.
People are always afraid to make it, but you're going to get everybody there. You got everybody's attention when it comes to moving to a new version of server.
Yeah, so maybe to touch again on that Hyper-V licensing. So if you already, let's say you have standard and you have two VM sub VMs that you're already using the two licenses for, and you want to create a third VM with Server 2022, what you can do is you can just license those additional cores. So if I'm going to have a two-core, VM, I can just buy the two-core pack since the main, Hyper-V host is actually licensed. But obviously, at a certain point, getting data center will be cheaper than continuing to buy those licensed core packs.
All right. Here's another
I
one
see a question
specific to
here
Hyper
from.
V. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Roger asked, you mentioned
No,
$6 a host for Defender. Why do I have to buy licenses for it? Is it better than the free one that comes with Windows 10 and 11? So the Defender license that you would pay the $6 for would be the centrally managed one. So the one you get for free is perfect for personal use, and it's just managed from that computer itself. That's where you do everything. The Pay Defender allows you access to the Defender portal where you can add your endpoints and you can centrally manage it instead of having to go to every computer or remote into it. And also reporting and statistics and stuff.
which is huge, which you need. I got a
Yeah.
question here from Michael. Is there a built-in tool to convert a VMware VM to Microsoft Hyper-V VM in Server 22?
No, but I would add that to my wish list. That would be amazing. but as of now,
Yeah, I
no,
was
there
gonna
isn't.
say there is nothing in there yet. Okay. All right, let's see. We already grabbed that one. That
So somebody mentioned
one.
nested VM on AMD. So nested VM is basically a VM within your VM. So it was more of a not a licensing issue; it was more of a technical issue. But now that is supported on 2022.
Got it.
That usually comes in play when people
Uh,
will have like a remote desktop and they're using like something like an Android emulator where they actually have to emulate that as a VM, and then you're running the issues because a VM in a VM, it's Inception kind of.
yeah.
Well, we're a VM, right? So we're a VM and a VM and a VM. So I guess you get. All
That's true
right, we have a
too.
question from Eric.
Dimforest asks, Dimforest says, hearing a lot of white paper stuff,
Yeah,
which is fine, but in normal people speak, is there any real reason for SMB to upgrade from 2019 to 2022 other than it's the newest thing? And no, to be honest, not really. Unless the 256-bit encryption really does something for you, uh, it's probably not going to be a huge upgrade. Again, small upgrades here and there, but nothing game changing. And on this topic specifically, SMB, it's not a huge deal. So no, it's more to have the newest thing. It's like going from iPhone 10 to 11.
cool. We have a question here from Eric. Does Server 22 ease the pain of using an on-prem ADFS server with on-prem conditional access configured on the on-prem ADF server? So how is it with Server 22? Is there any ease of pain or benefits for ADFS that we can talk about?
So they have rolled out a preview version of. There's a new version of. They call it Windows Hello for Business. So I was actually working with a client on that. So there is some upcoming stuff, but it's not built into 2022, and I don't know if it will be backported to 2019.
Got it. So we have another question here, and then and we can kind of use this as a generality talking point about anything about leveraging Server 2022 with Azure as a backup platform. Like I know we talked about it, but is there anything that you guys would recommend or that you've seen so far, like leveraging Azure to use it as whether it's redundancy or straight up backup platform? Like how tight is that integration?
So with the Arc enablement and the fact that you can manage your physical servers inside of Azure, that does make things a little easier in terms of backing up. Again, there's no native feature to do that, but being able to manage it from your Azure console does make it a little easier.
There's a lot of third-party
Got it.
tie-ins. For example, in the past I've used, I don't know if any of you, it's a little more small business, but Synology, they can back up your Windows servers, and then that backup can get uploaded to Azure with almost zero configuration. Microsoft has definitely pushed, a lot of that backup to third-party software since a lot of people are already using those, and those softwares optionally can tie in with an Azure, storage blob, for example.
Got it. All right, so we got about 5 minutes left. So I grabbed this one because I think this will be a fun question that for both of you, and it would be kind of more of a subjective. Like I don't know if it'd be like a sales pitch or whatever. So it's from Crazy Lefty. So what's the killer app or feature for Server 2022 which would make me want to upgrade to Server 2022? So it's kind of like, Wolf of Wall Street, sell me this pen. Like, what's that one feature in 2022 that both of you've run into that you're like, oh man, yes, we've needed that?
For me, it's the
Go ahead.
Arc enablement on the servers because I work with Azure a lot because I deal with a lot of on-prem environments and things like that. I've seen it in action for a couple of them so far, and it honestly makes my life a lot easier without having to open 10 different windows to log into 10 different servers. and manage them from there. So yeah, that would be my pick.
Robert,
Mine
how
would
about
actually be
you?
something really small. Believe it or not, for me, it's the TLS 1.3, because I know some people use very custom applications on their Windows server, and those applications never get updated. And next thing you know, that server is sitting underneath someone's desk, and nobody knows what happened to it. But at least with it being 1.3, it's going to, 10 years in the future when Chrome has, we're on 1.4 or whatever, the next version is, and they're getting rid of, 1.2, at least it will last you a little bit longer, as well as more secure, especially, for when you're exchanging that web info. You just hear people getting compromised left and right. So it's one less thing you have to kind of worry about.
Yes, the whole goal is don't
I
end up
do.
on the news. We don't want.
Yeah. I do see another question here from Dim Forest that I think is a good one. He asks, conditional access policies are amazing in Azure, but it's not clear what licensing is needed to push the policies worldwide. Do you just need the P1 for admins or P1 for all? So the technical answer, Dim Forest, is you do need an Azure AD P1 license for every user that the policy applies to. Now, the other answer is Azure ADP1 is what's considered a tenant-wide license. So if you have one copy in your entire tenant, it unlocks the admin center. You can create policies, you can apply them. The caveat here is if you don't license every user that the policies apply to and you get audited, then you end up having to pay that. So I'm not telling you to do it, but I'm just saying it is a tenant-wide license.
Got it. All right, we're getting close to the end here. So while we do our raffle, and just even if we did not get to answer your question live on the air, you were put in the raffle. So we're going to draw that quick raffle here real quick. And while we do that, I'm going to give Michael and Robert the floor. Michael, we'll start with you. So this would be, the last words as far as what would you recommend to be the first steps on your journey to Windows Server 2022?
The first step is, I think, just taking a look at your current environment and seeing what things you want to improve. And if those two answers are security and virtualization and integration with Azure, then I think Server 22 could be a worthwhile upgrade. But again, if your environment is working and you're on 2016 or 19, there's not a whole lot of reason to upgrade.
Got it. Robert, what are your final words on what would be the first step on your journey to Windows Server 2022?
Like Michael, kind of evaluate your existing environment. I would say basically if you're 2016 and older, you definitely need to start working on a migration plan. There's a lot of things that are falling off with 2016, like AD Connect. Or if you're on 2019, you don't have that custom of a setup. An upgrade over the weekend is going to be pretty simple. Not much is going to break, not much is going to change, but future you will thank you.
That is a good way to put it. You're absolutely right. Future will thank you. All right, so we have our winner of the Amazon e-gift card is Granite Geek. Granite Geek, you are the winner of the $500 Amazon e-gift card. So congratulations. We had a drum roll and a clap. Congratulations. So again, thank you guys. So I want to thank Robert and Michael and all our friends at the Trusted Tech team for getting us through. We're in IT, so we have trust issues. So it's good to have a Trusted Tech team on our side to help us get through all of this. So thank you guys very much for sharing your time. Thank you to all our IT pros out there for watching. And that's it. Well, we will see you on the next video meetup. Don't forget to follow up on our resource widgets. Check out the big changes, what's new in Windows Server 2022, and use that Windows Server calculator. So enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to tech yourself before you wreck yourself. We'll see you next time.